Hello, and welcome back to This Month on the Railroad, my monthly train news segment. Today's episode is about October of 2021. I don't know what else there really is to say in the intro, so let's begin. As per usual, we're beginning with news that came out after I recorded the voiceover for last month's episode. So on September 30th, ProgressRail and Norfolk Southern unveiled their first GP34ECO, which is a new locomotive rebuilt from a GP9. This new GP34 uses the same 12-cylinder EMD 710 prime mover as a GP9, but now it uses DEF or diesel exhaust fluid in conjunction with the selective catalytic reduction aftertreatment system to comply with EPA Tier 4 emissions standards. This new GP34, numbered 4800, now operates at 10% of the emissions of the GP59 it used to be. This locomotive was overhauled jointly between NS and ProgressRail at the Juniata shops in Altoona, Pennsylvania. Also of note is the absolutely terrible Photoshop job they did with the press picture. Look at this thing. Luckily, this terrible Photoshop is made up by the cool green and black eco paint scheme that they gave this thing, which at this point is a regular sight on rebuilt NS 4-axle units. On the 2nd, MBTA PCC number 3265 was delivered to the Mattapan car house after a lengthy restoration project done by the MBTA's Everett shops. 3265 was unloaded from a trailer and put back onto the rails, this time on brand new Brookville trucks. Now that the Everett shops has restored the body panels and repainted it, it's the Mattapan shops' job to apply exterior details, refurbish the interior, and eventually release it into service. This is a big deal for fans of the Mattapan line because over the years, there's been occasional talk of getting rid of the PCCs, but now that the out-of-service cars are being restored, it's clear that they're here to stay for just a bit longer. I'm beginning the process of creating a mini documentary about the Mattapan high-speed line, so be sure to stay tuned for that. Next, on October 4th, Amtrak 160, the 6th and final 50th anniversary unit, was released. Final unit, P42 number 160, was painted in the Phase 3 paint scheme originally seen on Amtrak's Dash 8s, known to rail fans as the Pepsi Can paint scheme. 160 made its way down to Washington, D.C., where many thought it would be parked in Ivy City Yard along with the other commemorative units, like Amtrak did 10 years ago with the 40th anniversary units, but as of when I'm recording this, that still hasn't happened. On the same day, Canadian Pacific released renders of its first zero-emissions locomotive. This new locomotive appears to have been rebuilt from an SD40-2F, and it now uses hydrogen fuel cell power instead of diesel. Similar to diesel-electric locomotives, which use diesel to power electric traction motors, hydrogen fuel cell uses the movement of electrons between hydrogen cells in order to create an electric current powering electric traction motors. The classification for this locomotive is H20EL, which means Hydrogen Zero Emissions Locomotive. Canadian Pacific says this locomotive will be operational by the end of 2022, but right now it's being prepped for painting. Later that day, a brand new Brightline train departed from the Siemens manufacturing plant in Florin, California. This new train set is called Bright Red 2, and it will be used on the new Orlando expansion once it opens in 2022. Until then, Bright Red 2 will operate between Miami and West Palm Beach, in addition to testing on the Orlando line once tracks are completed. The next day, MBTA Kawasaki bi-level car number 780 was returned from Alstom's plant in upstate New York. This is a somewhat regular occurrence, but 780 was the last of the 700 series cars that were rebuilt. Now, all of MBTA's original 700 Series K cars have been rebuilt, and now word on the street is that the Kawasaki 900s will be overhauled next. On the 6th, the Southern California Railroad Museum announced that they had acquired Santa Fe SD45 number 5704, which was saved from the scrapper's torch earlier this year. At one point, this unit was a commemorative Bicentennial unit, but it was repainted into the ATSF Blue Bonnet paint scheme soon after. The museum that acquired it plans to restore and repaint it into its former Bicentennial paint scheme. 2 days later, the Railroad Museum of Pennsylvania announced that Norfolk and Western will be temporarily kept in Strasburg. In 2019, the last time 611 came to Strasburg, 611 was moved down to its home museum in North Carolina promptly after its duties on special trains. But this time around, Strasburg will keep 611 until further notice so 611 can get its yearly inspections and maintenance. Not only will Strasburg temporarily take care of 611, but it also seems that they want to make 611 a yearly thing. So I suppose if you live near Strasburg, 611 will become a more regular thing. On the 10th, or sometime around then, Amtrak P42 number 197 got Big Game Train decals on it. The Big Game Train is a yearly thing for the Heartland Flyer, and after the cancellation of last year's, it's nice to see that it's back in business. 197 will likely wear the Big Game Train decals on it until Amtrak decides to remove them. Or who knows, maybe 197 will keep its decal as 157 has for the past few years. The next day, Canadian Pacific announced the cancellation of their yearly holiday train, joining CSX and KCS, who also canceled theirs. This makes the second year in a row now that CP's holiday train will be virtual instead of in person. On the 12th, CSX released a brand new freshly repainted safety train for training first responders on how to deal with railroad-related emergencies. days. The safety train is now joining the rest of CSX's executive fleet to be repainted. Like I said last month, the geometry trains should be getting repainted soon as well. It's strange how all of a sudden CSX is changing up their paint schemes, not only with their executive fleet, but also with their actual locomotives. Additionally, from CSX on that day, all intermodal train symbols were changed from Q trains to I trains, meaning that trains like Q003 were changed to I003. This change was made in order to differentiate manifests and intermodals for dispatchers, and obviously the I stands for intermodal. On the 13th, New Jersey Transit approved a contract to build a new Portal Bridge. Portal Bridge is a vital piece of infrastructure in Kearny, New Jersey, between the station stops of Secaucus and Newark. The current Portal Bridge is infamous for causing delays because it often cannot swing open or closed, either putting train or boat traffic to a halt. This $1.56 billion contract is the largest in NJT's history, and the project is projected to take about 5.5 years, but as we all know, it's a railroad infrastructure project, so you can expect it to be completed late and go over budget. Nonetheless, it's good to see that the Portal Bridge replacement is finally funded, as that's been a priority infrastructure project for quite some time. On the 15th, private higher speed rail company Brightline began testing their new trains and retraining crews on their line between Miami and West Palm Beach, Florida, in preparation for service to resume on November 8th. Brightline Florida will be resuming service for the first time since March of 2020, which means their trains have been sitting for 1.5 years. During that time, the paint scheme saw minor edits, including new classes of service. Additionally, the new train set that was delivered earlier in the month will also be used in service, so that'll be the only train that didn't sit for a long time. Now that Brightline is back in service, they'll have a more steady source of income, but even when they didn't have trains running, luckily they were able to continue construction on their expansion projects. On the 18th, GO Transit began its service from Toronto to London, Ontario. In the last episode, I think I said service would begin on the 8th, but I just read it wrong. Service was supposed to begin on the 18th. Also, I said that this was the longest commuter rail route in North America, but in reality, Long Island Railroad's New York City to Montauk route is actually the longest. On the 21st, Amtrak's 2 brand new ALC-42s left Delaware en route to Chicago, where they would begin testing in Michigan. As of now, the ALC-42s are completing high-speed testing on the Wolverine route in Michigan. After that, I think they'll be testing on long-distance trains. And then in a few months, the first ALC-42s will enter revenue service, and the replacement of the P-42s will commence. On the same day, Brightline West, the privately run high-speed rail company that is being constructed between Los Angeles and Las Vegas, announced that they had signed a deal with the state to build a 48-mile high-speed line between Victorville and Rancho Cucamonga, using parts of I-15. A new station will be built in Rancho Cucamonga to allow for easy transfers between Brightline West and Metrolink. These plans also include an underground loop service from Cucamonga to Ontario Airport. This new plan means that Brightline West is making progress towards an actual running train. At this point, Brightline West has reached an agreement with the state of California to the right-of-way between Rancho Cucamonga and Las Vegas. So all that's left is Rancho Cucamonga to Los Angeles, which is currently connected by Metrolink. Obviously, this part of the project might be the most difficult, but it's great that Brightline West already has the right-of-way for the majority of the route. They still haven't said when construction will begin, but they're hoping to get some funding from the states of California and Nevada in 2022. So that means construction should begin in 2022 or 2023 if funded. The next day, Amtrak began a $150 million renovation project at Baltimore Penn Station, which is one of the more busy stations on the Northeast Corridor. The current station is from 1984, so it's safe to say that it's due for a renovation. Planning for this project began in 2018 and it's finally commencing now, with the big upgrades being modernized facilities, ADA compliance, and upgraded platforms for the new Acellas entering service next year. Continuing with the theme of Amtrak news, on the 23rd, pictures of 3 new Amtrak ALC-42 chargers surfaced, with 3 of them nearing completion or awaiting delivery at the Siemens plant in Florin, California. 302 and 303 are completed, with 302 on the departure track and 303 waiting to be moved there. 304 is nearing completion, with it awaiting number decals and some red paint on the nose. Presumably 305 is also probably nearing completion, and after that, all remaining ALC-42s will be in the Phase 7 paint scheme as opposed to Phase 6. No pictures of a fully painted Phase 7 charger have surfaced yet, but it's only a matter of time before that happens. Anyways, it's been a pretty busy month at Siemens Mobility, with the delivery of a Via Rail train set, a Brightline train set, and soon 3 more Amtrak locomotives. The next day, Amtrak 406 was spotted running in Vermont on crew qualification trains, in preparation for the Ethan Allen Express expansion to Burlington, Vermont. This is 406's first real time being used for anything in over a year, as last time it was spotted, it was sent west from Boston on the Lakeshore Limited. The plan is for 406 to be used on non-revenue trains in the Albany area, but hopefully at some point it will return to the Downeaster. On the 25th, TriRail restored its pre-pandemic schedule, meaning that they're running many more trains than before. TriRail seems to be the first of many railroads to be doing this, especially down south, as the adjacent Brightline is bringing back pre-pandemic levels of service next month. I guess that means that passenger railroads are finally coming back to normal, and hopefully that means that ridership numbers will go up too. Anyways, that's the end of this episode, so thanks for watching, and I'll see you in a little over a week in my next video.